And so I would advise, if you are wanting to, try to figure out your finances and trying to sort out your taxes, and you want to find out how you manage your money because you're trying to get things,
How you can
especially
get
in
in
this
order.
rent.
Yeah. And not
especially
be
because of the
surprised
currency going
later.
down. Yeah, so this is where we are, and we'd like to find out a little bit more. And she was just telling us of how she actually, who she is, and now we want to know how she began. That is in this industry. How did you get introduced to the field that you're in?
Yeah, how it worked, I actually started by doing my articles at PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. So I was working as a trainee accountant, and then I joined McIntyre Bank of Lisbon as a senior financial accountant. Then I moved to SARS as a financial investigations expert, and then I was later on promoted to being a tax manager. So while I was working at SARS as a tax manager, I noticed that there were lots of taxpayers that were evading tax unintentionally. They lacked understanding of tax compliance. So I thought maybe it would be a wise thing to start an accounting firm who will focus on tax and accounting and help with those ones who have less knowledge of tax compliance. So what we do is we help with tax planning. Also, let's say you have a business and it has generated profits, and then you want to invest part of that profit. So we'll help you maybe decide which investment options to pursue, because you don't only look at the net return when you go for certain investments, but you also need to look at the actual net return that goes into your pockets after tax has been deducted. Like, for example, if you think of maybe you want to buy shares, whether for investment or for speculation, when you invest, they say maybe if you've bought those shares and you've held them for a period of more than 3 years, you'll be taxed at lesser rates. That is capital gains tax. But then if you speculate, then now it's like you're holding those shares as stock. Therefore, you get taxed at higher rates. So those kind of things.
It's tricky. It can get a bit tricky.
It is. That's why you need people like us to advise with it.
To better explain things to you. So you, of course, told us exactly how it is that you made your decision to get to where you are right now. Now that you're here, are you still happy with your decision?
Quite happy, very happy, because tax affects everyone. If you think, even a newborn, because when newborn you buy diapers have tax, which is VAT. The adults, they pay tax in the form of pay as you earn, or even VAT as well. I mean, the adults, they also pay tax. I mean, people pay fuel levy, that is tax. So tax affects everyone. So for me, we just saw a niche, and then we capitalized on that gap.
And the niche was obviously people that are unaware, and it happens to a lot of people. They're unaware that they're actually evading. I mean, there's people that look at their pay slips, and the pay slip says tax paid, that is on, and they think that is covered.
They think that is covered, exactly, because tax would be withheld by your employer every month, and then at the end of the tax year, you need to submit your tax return. You've probably heard when they say the tax season has opened from July until November. That's when now you have to do the reconciliation to say whatever that my employer has submitted on my behalf, this is what I believe that I owed as well. Then they do a reconciliation. Sometimes you end up in a refund situation.
Yeah, that's the better side of the fence, which we always look forward to. And that's, of course, also, when you mentioned about tax season, that's when the very popular word comes about, with IRP5 files that you need to go and submit. And I guess also talking about people from our side who are in the entertainment industry, as Adil was alluding to, that you do get your payslip, you see there's a portion that has been given to tax, and you think that you've done your bit, but then when you do submit your income tax, then you get to realize that you are in a different income bracket because you have other streams of income that come in, which also changes the dynamics completely.
Exactly, because you remember your employer would not know about your other sources of income. They would only withhold tax based on what you have earned from them. So hence it becomes important then to declare at the end of the financial year. And another part of the RP5 that we've touched on, some employers, they would withhold employees tax, which is pay as you earn, and not pay it over to SARS. So now when you declare at the end of the year, SARS will be like, we don't know you because your employer has never submitted tax returns. So it's quite important that when you are hired, you go to your employer HR department or payroll department to verify that all the taxes that get withheld are actually paid over to SARS.
I want to ask, what that happens when your employer withholds, like you were mentioning, who pays those penalties, you or your employer?
It should be the employer, because the Tax Act is quite clear that the employer is the one that's mandated to withhold that employee's tax from you.
There's a notion that, you know, if you're employed and you're employed as a company as opposed to an individual, you are you're well suited for better tax returns. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so what happens is the company gets taxed at a lower rate, which is 28% compared to an individual. So the individual tax is progressive. You know, there's a table to start from 18% right up to 45%. You probably heard the Minister of Finance this year say if you earn more than 1.5 million, you'll be taxed at a rate of 45%. So that's why then people would opt for companies rather than being taxed as individuals. But then it's quite important that you sit with your tax consultant, because some people would think, okay, if I get a salary, I get taxed at a higher rate. So if I start my own company, I'd rather take dividends, because then I'll be taxed at a lower rate and the company gets taxed at a lower rate. But now what they don't understand, the technical aspect, is dividends are not deductible for tax purposes, meaning you don't get a benefit of reducing your taxable income, even though a company is taxed at a lower rate. But the salaries, on the other hand, although they are taxed at a higher rate, which is up to 45%, but there's a tax deduction, meaning your taxable income ends up being reduced significantly by that salaries amount. So that's why you need to sit with your tax consultant before, you know.
I was going to say, there's some people that just get dizzy when they hear too many numbers.
Yeah.
Like what you just mentioned now. I can imagine someone listening is just, yo, she lost me. That's when you need someone to assist you.
Exactly.
I think the best part is that it's almost like a one-stop shop. Your company, you do accounting, you do tax, you do all of those things. So you also, you know, you consult with regards to that, because I mean, one has to go with the other. If you are going to be doing tax, you obviously need to consult with the clients on how we can better your tax bracket, your tax returns. How do we avoid seeing you getting arrested or at least garnished?
Precisely, because you know, for you to understand tax, you need to understand accounting. You know, because it starts from accounting, which is it's from record keeping and making sure that you've got accurate like sets of financial records for your business. So then once you've done that correctly, then it goes to tax implications of all the financial transactions that you've had in your business. So yeah, those two.
I'd like to ask this question. I feel it's very important to me, and it might also be important to somebody else, because we do get to speak to each other as friends, you know, and say, okay, my tax practitioner charges me this much and mine charges me that much. Is there a minimum fee that one must charge? Or is it just standard? Or can you charge anything you want to?
You know, actually, there are various forms of charging. You know, the institutions like the South African Institute of Tax Professionals will prescribe certain rates. They would say, okay, if you're providing like consulting services, this is how much you should charge, and you should charge per hour. So as long as you are explicit, you are clear to your client how you arrive to your final figure. You say, I charge so much per hour. Or others will charge a contingency fee, where they say, we will do this work for you depending on the results. If the results are positive for you, then we'll charge a certain percentage. But the primary thing is the fees need to be discussed up front on the letter of engagement. So you shouldn't be surprised.
Bachelor of Accountancy, University of KwaZulu-Natal, Financial Management, Financial Investigations with Wildlife Institute of South Africa, Business Accountant Practice, Master Tax Practitioner. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can follow us on our Twitter handle. It's at BtmtCapital, or they can call us on 010-035-1389, or they can visit us at our offices. We are in Sandton. It's 150 Rebonia Road.
Hey, money is rolling in. Sandton is now cheap.
Well, did you hear her qualifications? So
well deserved.
She's good for it, yeah.
Well deserved. It is, of course, 9:17, and the office battle is coming up. Unfortunately, she can't take part in the office battle because you know, she's too far gone. She's made, and that is Busisiwe Mdletshe. If you want to be a part of this, of course, the office battle, give us a shout. Give us a shout right now. Thank you so much for coming through, and thank you for the insight.
Thank you very much. And one piece of advice to young entrepreneurs, it's important to get mentorship. Like with us, we have mentors like Mahanyel and Sandile Zungu. They help us because, you know, sometimes when you leave full-time employment and you start a business, you are not acquainted on how to run a business. So mentorship is very, very important.
Agreed.
Okay. So